this is the room of memories and the room of thoughts, you know. Now, if I can get them out, it'll be great. If I can't, I'm going to have to refer back to my wife, Angie. She's been with me for way over 30 years, and I should know the exact number because she'll hit me later. It's like, oh, you know, anyway. Anyway, these are a couple of records that we put up. And no particular reason why or the order when we moved here is the ones that probably unpacked first. But anyway, we have Usher's album, and a real little short story about that is we had a whole bunch of producers and stuff like that in from Uptown Records. Andre Harrell, Albie Shore, and please, if I forget other people that was in the room, I know you were there. L.A. Reid was probably involved. Yes. There was a lot of people in the room, and we were doing this new artist at the time, and he was young teenager, and we did his album, and then that same night it was the Grammys when we were working on it, and we all went to the Grammys, and me and my wife, we were just like mingling and stuff. A couple of the producers and stuff, they wanted to, you know, mingle with other people and get some drinks.
Everybody went their separate ways.
Yeah, everyone, you know, did their separate things. And we saw the artist sitting there, and it was like, oh man, you know, he looks lonely, you know, and so us being parents, we have kids that, you know, are close to his age and stuff. So we just kind of hung with him. And the funniest thing, it was Usher. It was Usher, and this was his first record, and I think he probably remembers that. It's like, oh yeah, Herb and Angie, you know, they're the ones who hung with me at the Grammys, because at that moment, no one didn't know him. His record hadn't come out yet, and he was a young adult there, you know, teenage at the Grammys, and you know, unknown. Well, not unknown now, you know. Everyone knows Usher, and he's been a great artist ever since, and a really cool person. And you know, when I look at that record, that reminds me of stuff like that. And then we can go on to
Alicia Keys.
Alicia Keys, we worked on her at Power's House of Sound, her first album. The funny thing about a quick little story about when we first met her. Most of the time, half-inch tapes, they're kind of bulky, you know, they're kind of big. I know a lot of people don't know what reel-to-reels are, but these are reel-to-reel tapes. They're heavy, they're bulky. You normally have to have them in a bag or maybe a strong bag because they're pretty substantial weight. So anyway, a beautiful young lady walks in and she has half-inch tapes, and she does like her powers and she's holding the tapes, and I was like, I think that's artist. And normally it's sent by a messenger or a courier or something like that, because sometimes it's in big boxes, but it was only like 2 or 3 reels or something like that. But she was following that straight from the mixing studio right into mastering. We were going to make the first vinyls and make the CD, and that was her. And she was, it was just lovely. It was like she's clutching the tapes, and it was like, you're right. They were like, great. And that was meeting Alicia, and we know where that story went. It went to a beautiful successful career, still going to this day. And again, with those two and everyone else that we talk about, I'm honored and privileged to have worked with them for so many years. Over here in the corner, we have Keith Sweat, you know. Yo, it's Keith Sweat. This is my Keith Sweat invitation, you know. Yo, it's Keith Sweat. It's make it last forever. You know, anyway, you know, the balladeer. He'll know what I'm talking about when I said the balladeer. But anyway, I met him. I think he came from work. He was working on Wall Street or something like that. And he came into the session, and with me, him, Vincent Davis, who I speak to like every week. You know, what's up, Vincent? Anyway, yeah, and then we were doing his album, and Teddy Riley was involved with that. It was like a whole collection of us all working on that record, and that was the start of his career. And I don't even know how many albums later we still communicate. He calls Ange, and you know, it's he books whatever time he needs, and we get it done. And it's a beautiful relationship. It's nice. I knew him from the beginning, and another one, honored and a privilege to work with him. And geez, flip around, and we did this bar Marley. It was like, I think it was like the best of. I think it was done at Frankfurt Wayne.
Yeah, Frankfurt Wayne.
Or it might have been a Hit Factory, but it might have been Frankfurt Wayne or a Hit Factory. Mm-hmm. But I'd have to look that up. But That's it was a great thing. I did a lot of reggae back then. Most of it was newer guys, but when you hear, oh, I'm doing Bob Marley, it's like, yeah. Now I'm like, man, I really arrived. I'm doing Bob Marley's record. TLC.
Yes, the sound of Atlanta.
Yes, and beautiful young girls that came in, and it was L.A. Reid came in with them, and I think maybe one or two only came in a session, but that was a great session. We didn't know of them, and they were dressed different. They had a whole new message and a whole new vibe that they were doing, and this is a long time later. We miss, and it's was a beautiful thing though. They had a great run, and
they were so unique.
So unique to this day.
Yeah.
Everyone's waterfalls and this and that. It's like, and just some of the records that were on that album, it's phenomenal. They were another group of young ladies that was that moment in our life that was like, you don't know that it's going to be a historical moment either at this time. And moving on to another group of ladies was the rappers, Salt and Pepper,
classic rap.
Classic rap, probably some of the best East Coast that you can get. They were always had great hits. They were doing everything from let's talk about sex, let's talk about this, let's talk about that. They were doing message rap. It was really cool that they were doing that at that time, and many albums were done, and they were always right there on the money, and always had something to say. And they were good people, cool, good people. And on the first record, you don't know how it's going to do, but then by the second record, it's going to be a big hit. And to this day, you still hear their beats. You still hear it in commercials or something like this.
Yes.
And that's phenomenal. When you still hear some of these songs, you'll hear a commercial, and it's like, oh, I remember that. Oh, that's cool. I hope they're still getting paid, and something like that. You never know. I don't know how the music been. I don't know how the contracts were, but, that's a whole nother story. And that's this group. Well, this is a really interesting record, because this is actually the record that most gold records don't do this, and I don't know if you can get tight in on this, but this is the actual Tommy Boy Soul Sonic Force Planet Rock Africa Mbata record. You can see my stamp and my scribe Herb Jr. and I think it says Angie there to it. And there's a video on my website that shows I used to scribe in the groove so that I knew they were my records that I actually did cut. Because what happened when you were cutting records, a lot of times when they were big hits, I would cut the first one that made the first couple of thousand or maybe 10,000 or something like that, and we would send the tapes to another studio to make other ones, and those ones I might not have cut. So they might have been a little not as hot or something, because depending on how that cutting engineer did them. They tried to always match them, but if I saw my stamp, I knew that was the one that I wrote on, I actually cut on, and I always wrote something a little comical or something a little cool in it, for people to read. And everyone loved doing that. It was almost like knowing it wasn't bootlegged. But anyway, This was my first gold record that I ever received from Tommy Boy Records. I'm not saying it's the first one that went gold, but back then, it's like anywhere else. If you say it went gold, then you got to pay everyone. It's like, oh yeah, we sold 500,000 copies or we sold 1 million copies. But anyway, this was the first gold record that I received. I still have it to this day. I'm proud of it. It's Planet Rock, it's Soul Sonic Force, and what a hit.
Frankfurt Wayne Master Labs.
Frankfurt Wayne Master Labs. So many records were sampled off that beat. So many records in the industry were sampled off of that particular song. You probably could have 10, 20 songs that actually have that underneath of it, Then moving on to this is later on in the career. This was done at Powerhouse of Sound. This is Biggie's album. I know I have this in here too. This is the latest album we did with Faith Evans. This is from the newest one, The King and I, it was called. I just stuck that there as a sticker. And what it is this was the album that very tragically had a name, and as we were working on it, me, Puffy, and a couple other people were there, and actually Biggie passed. And we all know that story. And I thought when they told me and we were in a session that it was a marketing thing to push the album. I really heard that because I think there was more. It might have been D Dot and a couple other things, a couple other people in the session, Derek, Angeletti, or maybe a few other people. And the news came in, and we were like, what? You know, and we were like, oh, what is this? Something to? I remember saying that. Is this something that is gonna make this record go big? And then it was no, this is real. And I was like, what? That it was horrible, but you know what? He was a great guy, great rapper, and if you knew him, he's just fun. You know, he's just this Biggie. You know, it was always cool. And then here we have a Sade, and my wife just brought up Diamond Life. This is the first album, Diamond Life, and that was Stronger Than Pride album. These are albums that I'm very, very proud of. A quick story about that. If you notice, this is on Portrait Records and this is on Epic Records. This was the first album. To my recollection, this album, I did it, and for over a year, it never came out. And I heard, this is just kind of hearsay, I'm not saying that this is the truth of it, they didn't know how to place her. She was jazzy, she was R&B, she wasn't American, so they didn't want to put her on Columbia Red. So her, Cyndi Lauper, and a couple of people that were considered a little eclectic or whatever you want to call them, they had to make a new label, and it was called Portrait. This is my story. I believe this is how it happened. And then she did so well. Oh, she's on Epic. Wow, she made it to Epic, you know. But it's an incredible artist. Meeting her, she was a beautiful young lady. And what a voice. I mean, I don't think I even have to explain Sade. Sade is, you know, people say, Sade, oh, yes, that voice, those songs, those beautiful music. And just cutting the vinyl. I still have my original acetate on that. I kept that to this day. It's like, yeah, those are incredible times, you know.
She's really one of a kind.
Yeah, and the music was one of a kind, and you know, and just moving along here, I just want to also talk about Luther Vandross. We have Luther Vandross's album here. This was just before he passed too. Dance with My Father. What a touching album, right? I did quite a few of his albums. He was a background singer before that. He was with a group, I think, named Change, and a couple of other singers. He did a lot of work before this, because I was a DJ before I was even into the whole mastering thing, and I had always heard his voice, always had a great voice, and met him at the Hit Factory and did a lot of his records, and it was incredible. It was incredible working with him, and I'm honored to have worked with him. Just like any of these other artists, it's just an honor to work with him. We move over to here. Mariah Carey. Worked with her for years. It's always been great. It's always been great working with her. As a matter of fact, there's a little quick story. We were doing I think it's that album, actually.
Yeah, it was that album.
And she wanted to put she's gonna be mad at me for saying this, but she wanted to put little vocals in between the songs, like little skits. And so I said, all right, just send them to me on the phone, and I'll make them really sound big, like they're in the studio, put some reverb on them and all the rest of that stuff. But she was with her kids. She was being a mom. She had a show on Letterman or something like that. Yeah, she was on David Letterman. And so we were in the middle of mastering when she was like on the show just about, and we're trying to finish up the album. And so I just sent them on the phone. You don't have to go get a studio and get a mic and pay the studio bill. We'll just get this done. And we were up all night, and we finally got them little pieces in there. She was like, and now the next song. It was really cool. And it's just a thing of how it flowed in. We used them as break points to go into the next song. That's when music was creative, because it was on a disc or a CD or an album, and it wasn't sold. It's just little pieces the way it is now. Yeah. It was really cool. And if you flip around, another artist, and this was what is it called? The sexy something cool sounds and all the rest of that. Justin Timberlake. Really funny guy. We had, he came in for session on I think it was the first album. It was that Hit Factory. And this was one of his albums from then. And really cool music, and his music, and it was with, I remember working with Jimmy Douglas on it. He was an engineer, and we just had good times, During that album. The one before it too was like, they were phenomenal. And there's so many records. We can keep this going on for a while. Maybe one day we'll do this again and we'll go through records and we'll actually have stories about them. Not long stories. I'm not trying to get in trouble over this stuff. I'm just trying to say what I remember. And if I miss someone's name, please forgive me because I don't remember everyone. I'm getting old. We've been at this for over 40 years and there's been
Yes.
so many names and so many records in and out. It's a beautiful thing. And again, I'm so honored. I bow to the artists and the producers and the engineers. Thank you for always trusting me with your legacies. And that's it's a beautiful thing.
Y'all, want to thank you for making it to the end of this clip. We appreciate you watching this breakdown. If you want to see more videos like this, please feel free to check out the links right over here. If you want to take your production, mixing, or whatever to the next level, or check out some of the other products that we have, make sure you check the links down in the description and in the comment section of this video. All right, I appreciate you guys. We'll see y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace.